What information do Canadian visa officers look at on their computer screen before they make a decision on your application?
Perhaps the computer can calculate its trajectory.
What are risk indicators and red flags in your application? What factors can put you at a disadvantage, especially for visitor visa, study, and work permit applications? I think your chances of approval will be higher if you know exactly which parts of the application the visa officers pay close attention to, and that's why we'll look at this very important but also very less known information in this video. I've heard some people speculating that our Canada visa officers use artificial intelligence to process our applications, and that their application was never seen by a human and refused by AI. I wanted to find an answer to this.
So I became a researcher specializing in artificial intelligence.
But that's not quite true, as we now know. The source of this information are the documents obtained from IRCC during a federal court case. A student from Nigeria applied for a study permit. Her application was refused, and she challenged the refusal in Federal Court of Canada. In their defense, IRCC presented some documents for this case that later became public, and those documents helped us understand a lot about the internal system that IRCC uses. Big shout out to Will Tao, who's been doing a lot of research on this subject. You can follow him on Twitter at this address. If this is your first time here, my name is Rashid Ali. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant from Ontario, Canada, and in this channel we talk about Canadian visas, immigration, and citizenship. Now, none of the information shared today or otherwise in this channel is legal advice. If you need legal advice, feel free to book a consultation so I can provide you advice specific to your circumstances. When I think of visa officers using artificial intelligence, something like this comes to mind.
Computer, run transformational matrix calculations.
It seems that they're using some very advanced technology, and
other computers are just pocket calculators by comparison.
the primary system that IRCC uses is called GCMS, or the Global Case Management System. That's why when your application is refused and you want to understand the real reasons, you request visa officers' notes, and those notes are also called GCMS notes because they are an extract of this system. Anyhow, as per the affidavit that was submitted to the court through the case I was talking about earlier, this system is slow. That's what IRCC says, that this system is slow, and to process the applications, the officers have to move from one screen to another screen, and moving between these screens is very slow. So IRCC wasn't very happy with the application processing time, and this was becoming a challenge because in 2019, IRCC processed almost 3 million visitor visa, study, and work permit applications submitted outside of Canada in other visa offices. So to solve this problem, in January 2018, IRCC started developing a new system to help process these applications much faster. This system is called Chinook. This is not artificial intelligence. IRCC is not using artificial intelligence. Chinook is a Microsoft Excel VBA based tool. This VBA tool accesses multiple applications from the GCMS and displays them in a single Excel spreadsheet. And this spreadsheet has 27 columns from A to AA, and each application represents one row. So at one time, officer can see about 24 applications in one screen, and this allows them to make a decision much quicker. Now, this affidavit was submitted about 2 years ago. So since then, it seems that IRCC have also moved to an online version of Chinook. It's not just Excel VBA based version. As far as we know, they don't have artificial intelligence yet. They're using this tool, which is an Excel VBA based tool, and in some visa offices they're using an online version of the tool. Now, the purpose of this video is to tell you more about this tool so you understand what goes into this tool, what do the IRCC officers look at, so you can strengthen your future applications. This Chinook tool has been extensively used and most probably is still being used, so understanding it is important. This tool has 6 modules. I'll share them briefly, but 2 of them are very interesting. The first module is the file management module. This has optional functionality and it is not used in every migration office where Chinook has been implemented. So what this module 1 does is it allows a user to self-assign an open application based on their processing task. So let's say if I am someone who is an expert of eligibility assessment, I may assign myself some applications that are ready for eligibility assessment. So I can pick some applications and start working on a specific part. Module 2, or the second part of this tool, is called pre-assessment. It is also optional and only used in a few IRCC offices. This is used by program assistants so they can do some pre-assessment before the actual decision maker. Module 3 is the most critical one, but before 3, let's talk about 4, 5, and 6. Module 4 is post-decision. It is actually a VBA pop-up. This module records the decision, and if the visa officer refuses the application after review, it provides a notes generator to assist in the creation of reasons. So the reasons that you see printed on the refusal letter, they're generated by system. Obviously, the officer doesn't have to type them every time. That's why sometimes they can be very vague and standard.
They may have had a reason,
blah, 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 blah.
So module 5 is very interesting. It is used for indicator management. So these are the risk indicators or flags that I was talking about in the start of the video. We'll talk more about that in just a second. Module 6 is for quality assurance. So module 3 is called the decision maker module. This is the one which had 27 columns and different rows, each row representing an application. This is basically a VBA report that is used by the visa officers. This report pulls information from your application forms and populates these 27 columns. Columns B to C have the application file and group number information from GCMS, from the system. Column D is where the decision makers enter their decision, whether your application is approved, refused, or if they need more information. Column E has decision makers' working notes. These particular notes are not saved and they are deleted once the application is completed. These notes cannot be obtained even after raising a GCMS request, as they never make it to the GCMS system. So in a way, we can't truly know what the visa officer was thinking about in that particular moment when they made a decision on your application.
Well, that's just great.
Columns F to I contain a lot of information obtained from your visa forms, such as your age, the purpose of your visit, date of receipt of the application, your citizenship, country of birth, your previous travel history, your dependents, and also answers to some of those questions about visa refusal that you see in the visa application. So if you say, yes, my visa has been refused, for example, for USA, UK, Australia, whatever, that shows up here. Column G has pre-assessment notes from module 2. So if they're using module 2, if there's some sort of pre-assessment, those notes will come over here. And the last two columns on the right, they contain information about risk indicators and local word flags. These two things are super critical. We'll talk about them in just a few seconds. So in these 27 columns, there are a lot of interesting things. A visa officer has your application along with 20 or so other applications in front of him or her in a single Excel spreadsheet. And they are only seeing some information on this screen, like your citizenship, previous travel history, your work history, your age, funds available, for example, for your education or your visit. And as I mentioned in the previous video, in 2019, visa officers spent on average 16 to 28 minutes on a study permit application, including all of the steps. This means that the visa officers may not even look at all of your documents, and in some cases may just make their decision from this Excel spreadsheet, which only has these 27 columns of data. So all of the hard work that is put into preparing those documents, there is a possibility that the visa officers don't even get a chance to look at them.
Your visa application has been denied.
Another interesting thing is that the decision column is column D. A, B, C, and D. And since in English we read from left to right, this means that they can enter a decision first and then reverse engineer the refusal reasons, that is, then justify why they refuse the application. So whatever the reason might be, to meet their quotas or whatever, they can take the decision first and then they can justify. Maybe that's why sometimes we see refusal reasons that don't really make a lot of sense. And I can speculate that they might be under pressure to meet certain quotas of visa refusal based on past trend. Let's say a certain country has 10% study permit approval rate historically, and today in the Excel spreadsheet, I'm a visa officer and I have 20 applications in front of me. How many of them will I approve? Will I approve only 2 based on the historical trend? What if 15 out of those 20 are very solid applications? Will I go against the historical trend and approve 75%? If I'm a visa officer, I'm also under pressure to go through these applications very quickly, 16 to 28 minutes. So will I read the complete submission letter, study plan, and all the other supporting documents? Something to think about. A learning point is that we should keep our application to the point. The study plan, for example, is supposed to be a 1-page document which answers 8 specific questions. But I've seen applicants write a 7-page study plan. No one will read that plan. So to give yourself maximum chance of success, be to the point and don't write generic things. Another learning point from looking at this internal system is that even though travel history is supposed to be a neutral factor for Canadian visa applications, and this is as per the Federal Court of Canada, it's supposed to be a neutral factor, which means that if you don't have travel history outside of your country of citizenship, it should not negatively impact your application. But since this travel history is one of those 27 columns, it can affect your visa decision. Otherwise, why is it even there? There's also a column about statutory questions. For example, have you ever been denied a visa before? So if you've received a visa refusal, it will show up in this spreadsheet. But this doesn't mean that you hide your visa refusals, as that can result in a refusal plus a ban of 5 years from future applications. Again, I will reiterate that because of this Chinook tool, the visa officer does not even need to go into each of your application documents and can just make a decision from the Excel spreadsheet based on the information in those 27 columns. The last 2 columns contain risk indicators and local flags. These are one of IRCC's most well-kept secrets. So what are they? As per IRCC, risk indicators in visa applications are used to notify decision makers of the trends that IRCC has detected. For example, let's say a certain company has shared fraudulent documents in the past, or a certain educational institution or a certain employer has been involved in fraud in the past. So that information can show up as a risk indicator. And if you've studied from that educational institute or if you've worked for that employer, or if you've somehow been associated with that company, that can show up as a risk indicator in your application. This information was highly redacted in the affidavit, so we cannot say for certain what the actual risk indicators are. They can be a certain country of residence, a certain city, a certain name, a certain word. We don't know for sure, but that's a possibility. The last column is local word flags, and according to IRCC, a local word flag is used to assist in triaging an application in order to ensure priority processing of time-sensitive applications. For example, if someone wants to attend a wedding or a funeral, and let's say they've mentioned that in their application, this should filter out the application, this should show up in that Excel spreadsheet, and they will know that this person has to go for, let's say, a wedding or a funeral. These are called local word flags because they are specific to a particular migration office. They can vary from Abu Dhabi to Ankara to London, etc. In the affidavit, they gave a positive example. Like they said, let's say Beijing office wants to add a local word flag for wedding, marriage or ceremony. They'd have to take approval, and then they can add those local word flags, which means that any applications which contains these words can potentially be flagged. It will show up in Chinook, and they will know, okay, we need to prioritize a decision on this application because it will show up in that Module 3 report. Another example could be that, let's say, a number of work permit applications have included falsified letters of offer under the name of a specific company. For example, Acme Oil, that's the example they gave. So this can be used as a negative indicator. So the word flags can be positive, they can also be negative. What they're trying to convey is that we use it to triage applications, and they gave a positive example. But I think it can work both ways. These can have a negative impact as well. So there you have it. This is all the information I wanted to share today. Something to think about. I hope it gives you some perspective on how IRCC processes your application. What do the visa officers see? If you have any comments, any thoughts, feel free to share below. So I have a message for you. I'm going to start an initiative where all of us can be together in one place in an online community. There we can answer each other's questions, we can support each other, we can share information throughout the journey. The journey for coming into Canada, whether that's for a visitor visa, a study permit, a work permit, whether that's through a PR program, and even if you're in Canada and now you're looking to get a job, you want to apply for your citizenship, you want to invite your parents, your siblings, your friends to Canada. This is going to be a community where all of us can support each other, share valuable information, and just hang out virtually. And this community will be for those of us who want to enjoy hanging out but are also serious about their goals. So there's going to be an application process. If you are interested in joining this community, which is going to start later this year, I will leave a link down below. I'll review each and every application to make sure we can build the best community that is possible. Thank you so much.